Everyone kind of figured that week 7 was going to be the slate of all slates to where things just went topsy-turvy, but nobody probably expected Alabama to have this type of performance, especially after what we saw last week in Nashville. Now, is this the reality that Alabama fans have to live with underneath Kalen DeBoer? Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered Postgame Show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking down everything that we saw from Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium as Alabama, quite literally, there is no other way to put it, survives a scare 27-25 against the likes of the Gamecocks. Real quickly, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below because this is your number one source for all things SEC moving forward. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This postgame show is brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Look good, feel good. Don't put a bag over your head like most Alabama fans right now at RHOBACK.com. Using that promo code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. Fall foliage photos are right around the corner. You got game days in Knoxville. You got game days in Cola. You got game days in Tuscaloosa. Regardless of where you are, make sure that you go ahead and pick up your next purchase at RHOBACK. Promo code SECU, 20% off. Dave, this was the appetizer. This was the first of what is going to be one of the biggest and best weeks in college football, the one that we have had circled countless times over the offseason, multiple moments throughout the year that we said this was going to be the week, and it did disappoint. But it did disappoint in a game where we thought for sure, at least the Alabama that we knew for the last decade and a half, this was one where they would rebound. This was one where they would respond, and this was one that would be easily in their pocket. Far from it. And now there is legit concern in Tuscaloosa. I don't care if you're an Alabama fan. I don't care if you like just Crimson Tide football. I don't care if you root for South Carolina, which, by the way, gritty performance from South Carolina to be able to come back. But we always start with the winners on the show. And my biggest takeaway is that there are concerns on this Crimson Tide roster that will not be corrected in 2024. Not even remotely close be corrected anytime soon.
No, you're right, Cole. I mean, Alabama, I would say, is pretty lucky right now to not be heading to Knoxville next week, staring at potentially 3 straight losses right in the face. I mean, South Carolina really controlled this game from, what would you say? I'm looking at the play-by-play, the stats right now, from the minute 37 mark, from Mazio Bennett's 36-yard touchdown from Lenore Sellers to make it 14-7. From that point on, it kind of felt like Carolina had the momentum, give or take a couple pieces in the fourth quarter. Bama had, but till the very end, yeah, I mean, South Carolina won in every really meaningful statistic too. I mean, outgained them. I know yards is a little overrated now, but third down, 7 for 15. They threw for what, 33 more yards in Alabama.
33 more yards, 34 more yards.
Yeah, 132, 104 to the ground. I mean, they had one more. Bama had one more penalty. Carolina was +2 in turnover margin and won the possession time of possession, TOP, 31-40 to 28-20. So, yeah, I mean, South Carolina sitting there potentially, hey, man, if we just had 2 field goal kickers, we may have beat LSU and Alabama. But you're right, to Alabama, you're sitting there. I mean, you were talking a little bit before we hit live. This team just doesn't really play off one another. And when I say that, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, like when the offense is playing well, the defense doesn't play well. They can't put it all together. Offense looks phenomenal. First drive, the first scripted play looks really good. Well, the defense didn't give up points till about the end of the first half, but still just field position. Defense was getting some stops to give the offense a chance to go control the game. Offense looks bad for 2 or 3 series. Oh, what do you know? It's 14-7. Then Cole, you saw the last minute and 37 of that half. It was wild. Going back and forth. Halftime, we're sitting at 14-12. Carolina comes out and just totally controls that first series in the second half. What was it, 8 minutes?
8 minutes off the clock.
Yeah.
8 minutes off the clock, and there was no chance of even stopping them. There was so much momentum leaning in favor of in South Carolina in that. No, for Alabama, this is a game where naturally we're going to talk about South Carolina and what direction they have to make changes. But for Alabama, this is one where in years past, you kind of felt if you were the opponent marching on into Bryant-Denny Stadium, we're in for an ass whooping. We are in for what is going to be a beatdown because they're going to be pissed off because if we know that they're a better team than what was on display in Nashville last week. And it's one thing, again, to lose to an opponent like the Commodores. It's one thing to say that Vanderbilt might actually be better than advertised, but it's more than that. This is now 12 consecutive quarters, actually 10 consecutive quarters, really, you could almost say 11 and a half consecutive quarters, where the defense has gotten a few lucky breaks, but for the most part has been awful. Unfortunately, when you have an offense that is headlined by a quarterback that is worthy of winning a Heisman Trophy in Jalen Milroe, you feel confident. You feel confident when you have a wide receiver core featuring Jeremy Bernard, featuring Ryan Williams, featuring CJ Dupree, the rushing attack headlined by Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. You feel like that you're a team that should be able to hold its own. But the problem is that they have to deliver on their end, and Alabama's offense didn't today. How many times was the play calling askew at best? How many times was Jalen Milroe under duress making mental mistakes? And then as soon as you finally saw a little bit of momentum for South Carolina, they capitalized and took it. 4th and 5, Mazio Bennett back of the end zone. Nobody is covering him. Nobody even close. As soon as it comes out of the break, immediately you get pressure. You get incredible pressure on Jalen Milroe to throw it. It's a safety. Interception. Right back to Jalen Kilgore. And immediately they go ahead and they capitalize and they get a field goal. And then coming out of the break, they keep it at an all-time high. They figure out a way to be able to just dismantle Alabama. And then on the ensuing drive, Alabama throws a pick in the back of the end zone. I mean, the score could have been easily so much worse for South Carolina. And it wasn't, because if this was on Alabama, which again, credit to South Carolina, credit Dow Loggins for dialing up some plays, credit Lenora Sellers for having a couple of big-time throws down the field, credit to their defense for playing as fundamentally sound as possible. But Dave, how many times did Alabama shoot itself in the foot and give opportunity after opportunity for the Gamecocks to capitalize?
Yeah.
Situation is, when you look at these two teams, Alabama 100% is a better team on paper. They are a more equipped team on paper. They have better 5-star talents. They have more NFL players on Sundays on this roster. But it felt like today, the team that was ranked number 7 actually kind of blew it with a late interception to Damani Jackson. That's how it felt to me so many times. South Carolina might have shot itself in the foot, but at the same time, Alabama gave them countless opportunities to go ahead and capitalize and bring this thing right back into it.
Yeah, I felt like we saw Jalen Milroe's floor today.
Yeah, 100%.
We saw the intentional grounding. I mean, the first half, he cost him, 5 points? Between the 2 points on the intentional grounding, then the field goal after the turnover.
And the momentum. Because just real fast, imagine if Alabama doesn't throw that safety because if it's an out-of-the-pocket throw. And imagine they don't throw that interception. It's a completely different game. It's a completely different game.
If you get a stop on that 4th and 9, it's probably just a tough. I mean, South Carolina, again, it's not to the point of waving the white flag. They got the ball to start the half. So you're down 14-0. You still are in the game. But I think Beamer was kind of like, yeah, we don't need to pump back to them with about a minute left. They go get a field goal. Like, I know we may not get it. We're giving them good field position, but I got to take a risk here on the road. It did. It paid off. They were in the game, had a chance to win till the very end. But, yeah, we saw Jalen Milroe's floor. It was his worst game of the year by far. I looked back to a little bit early season last year. Again, it's not even just the interceptions. He threw 2, but it was just the intentional grounding, like stuff that can't happen. I remember seeing that guy come off the edge. I was like, man, if he turns back to this field right here, he's going to have that pass rusher right in his face. He better get rid of it. What do you know? I mean, he didn't. And then I think just overall, this Bama team, I think what it is Kalen DeBoer, them weren't great in penalties and boneheaded decisions at Washington. They were at 115 or something, 109, 110 his last few years.
They were in the bottom 30. They were
bad penalty wise. And again, Alabama, you could attest, hasn't been great penalty wise the last 2 years under Nick Saban. It just kind of goes what it is. But you just see dumb stuff over and over again where it's like, all right, roughing the passer. I get it, a little soft, but we know, guys, they protect the quarterback now. You can't go high on him. Anything they're going to call, guys. So that's on us at this point for not being aware. And again, another tough one. If you just get the sack, you get the fumble. If you don't grab his face mask, the game's over. And then at the end, this didn't hurt him. I mean, you talked about it at the end. Damani Jackson interception. Go down. What are you doing just running around thinking you're going to go house it? If they, again, unlikely, big hypothetical, but what if you fumble and they picked it up to return it in like Michigan State a couple years ago? Like some wild finish like that. That's how this game was shaping up. Also, by the way, what a hell of an onside kick by the kicker. By the way.
And honestly, that was probably the best onside kick I've seen in a hot minute. Just the way that they were able to get the proper bounce to ricochet off of an Alabama defender right into the arms of a Gamecock player and set themselves up in great field position. For Alabama, defensively, there were so many faults, so many miscommunications. But they also did create some opportunities to where the offense could capitalize, which is why when you say this is not just only on Kane Womack, it isn't, because of how many times did you see a fumble recovered by Alabama? How many times did you see a forced pass incompletion? How many times did you see Alabama capitalize on Norris Sellers being a young player making careless redshirt freshman mistakes, and then Alabama couldn't do anything with it? So it's more than just Kane Womack. Don't get me wrong. We are not taking Kane Womack off at the cross. He deserves his beck and call right now for how he is coached. It has been shameful at times. It is anything from what we've seen from Alabama teams of old. But there were multiple opportunities for Alabama to capitalize, to build off of this momentum, to build off of this consistency. And they never did. They didn't. And that's where the questions are right now. This doesn't feel like a team. This does not feel like an Alabama team that is ready for the college football playoff. And by the way, we need to stop talking like they're a guarantee shoo-in, because of 10-2 with that script A, maybe we'll carry a little bit of weight with voters. But the way that you have looked in the second half against Georgia, the fact that you lost on the road to Vanderbilt, where that really felt more so like an Alabama home game with how many fans were in the stands, and the way you played today, you're not guaranteed a damn thing when it comes to being in the postseason picture at this point. But Alabama also does not feel like a roster right now that is playing consistently on either end of the spectrum. They constantly are giving away opportunities for other opponents to go ahead and attack. And there's multiple moments where you're sitting here as an Alabama fan, or just as somebody watching college football wondering, what the hell is going on? Because this is not the version of Alabama that we knew for the last decade plus.
Yeah, it's just the key mistakes over and over again that you see get constantly repeated. So you're wondering if it's just being echoed in the building. But to your point, Cole, you talk about Kane Womack. It's not all his fault. I just pulled the play-by-play here. The 1st and 10 that South Carolina had in the, what was it? Fourth quarter with 10:32 left. Raheem Sanders run for 23 yards to the South Carolina 48 for a first down. If you go back and watch that film, I rewinded it to watch. Deontay Lawson is filling in and just whiffs. So that's not a scheme thing. Now, the only thing you could complain about is you just don't like that scheme because there's no help on the backside the way he blitzes with run gap. So if your backers, they get through the second level, yeah, it's going to be a jailhouse break almost like it was. But if your backer's scraping over, he should be in that B gap to make the play. Yeah. And he just didn't. He just didn't. That's one of Alabama's better players. Again, Alabama's second level recently has not been playing well.
It's been atrocious.
Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson have been bad. Because a positive, I guess, for Alabama. I just talked about him. I just drilled him for a second. But a positive, it looks like maybe a hit pointer type deal for Damani Jackson in the first half. That's big. You have him back.
Yeah,
I will say that he's probably your most consistent corner. But you're right, Cole. It's where do you go from here, man? With a trip to Knoxville next week, and that game doesn't look like it's both teams are going to be undefeated rolling in. It's kind of like, yeah, both teams would like to smoke their cigars, but you know what? It's not a playoff ending, and it's still mathematically it's not.
It's not, but it can be.
It can be, yeah, 100%. Because you don't know how the committee would view a Vanderbilt loss if the season ends, because we don't know what Vanderbilt's going to end up. But you're right. You are playing with fire week to week now. I think Bama's lack of depth across the board. I see a lot of people projecting Jahad Campbell in the first round, and maybe
I don't understand
him up off the edge a little bit. But right now, dude, he just looks like a fish out of water in the runs. Cole, we talked about it a little bit, and I think the preview. You see I know fans are bashing Dow Loggins in the comments, but I'll give him credit. He used some of the stuff Vanderbilt was doing on the option. You saw them use the Y sniffer and the shovel pass. Diego Pavia and Eli Stout.
And again, the third down inconsistency to be able to knock it off the field. It's not just milking the clock, which, by the way, give a lot of
credit. I'm not interrupting here, just piggybacking off what you said. Yeah, Carolina was 7 for 15.
Yeah, that's the point. Vanderbilt set a standard last week and a blueprint for every team on how to win against Alabama. Get consistency on third down, be in third and manageable, and put yourself in a position to where the clock will keep running. Because Alabama, here's the part that I really agree with you with, Dave, and we've had these conversations for a while now. I believe Alabama's front five, their starting offensive line, is not playing up to a standard. But also, we got to give a ton of credit to South Carolina, especially their front seven, and we will in a minute. But their depth this year will be the worst in the history of Alabama football. They don't have dudes that can come on in and be able to block and play a consistent brand of football the way that we have seen for years underneath Nick Saban. And that was always going to be the case. The second that you lose a player like a Pritchett, the second that you lose a guy like a Caden Proctor, the second that you don't see Parker Brailsford live up to expectations, immediately you throw yourselves behind the sticks and you put yourself in such a disadvantage. And it's more than just that also on the offensive line. The secondary has that. There were multiple times today where you had two true freshmen at the University of Alabama playing in coverage in SEC football games. Dave, that's not a word or a sentence I ever thought I would say in the history of Alabama football, but it's the reality, especially with the transfer portal, with the way NIL is working, and with the way a new coach is coming on in and trying to set his standard. So really, this is always going to be the weakest team that Kalen DeBoer fields, which is why anybody out there saying, I'm out on Kalen DeBoer, please slow your roll. This is a guy that has won over 100 games, 3 national titles at the NIAA level, and took a Washington team that was 4-8 to a national championship appearance in 2 years, and had back-to-back double-digit win seasons.
Yeah, 13 total losses as the head coach.
So we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there at all. But this was always going to be the weakest team. But you are seeing those weaknesses. And right now, 100%, there is a reason for concern in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, 100% there is. I mean, I don't know why. Again, it didn't press panic, but you're never going to be upset about a win in the SEC against, again, a pretty solid South Carolina team across the board. How about their defense? Dude, that defensive line travels on the road. What do they have? 10 combined sacks against Kentucky and Alabama here on the road in league play?
10 or 11.
Yeah, I mean, that team's been wrecking havoc. You could tell once South Carolina was selling out on that pass rush, Bama started getting on the ground more. But no, you're right. Before we moved to South Carolina, Bama, you had to have that one. You had to have that one, and you skates by. Woo, that was close, man.
They were walking a tightrope on the top of the Empire State Building for over a mile, to where one bad slip, they are falling and they're not coming back up.
Yeah, like from that 4th and 9 conversion, South Carolina.
It was that way.
South Carolina controlled the game.
Before we move on to South Carolina, I do want to ask you, the Jeremy Bernard touchdown pass out of the back of the end zone with 39 seconds. With a 39-yard touchdown with 1:55 left. There are two thoughts here. The first one is, if you're an Alabama fan, you feel comfortable that the way that your defense has been able to create missed opportunities, and also the fact that your defense has been able to force a young quarterback into making mistakes, that's enough for you to feel that you're walking away with a dub. That's enough for you to feel like that you're good enough to pull away. There's also a second train of thought that is, why don't you take a knee? That way you can give them every opportunity to call a timeout, walk away with the field goal, and then you don't even have to be in that situation because you can run down the clock as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a ballsy call, for lack of a better term. It's like you're awesome if you hit it, and your people are gonna. That's something people will be talking about on Monday on the McElroy and Kublik show. Should they have ran the football? And that would be a big topic. I always like the aggressive play call, and I get it. If I was South Carolina and Clayton White, I would have sold out on the run too. I mean, it's 4th and 9. We have no timeouts. If I'm thinking of it as a South Carolina coach. Like, yeah, they're probably going to sell out. I mean, Jalen hadn't played well. They don't want to give a mistake. They don't want to force a mistake. I mean, I give Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan credit. That was a ballsy call. Again, hindsight 2020, looks awesome now. You would have saved South Carolina 40 seconds, and all they needed was a field goal. So it would have been dangerous. All that Nick, you were texting a little bit. It looked like you almost overthrew him.
I honestly thought that it was an overthrown ball. Now, let's switch sides and talk about the losing team. Now, honestly, for my money, you're playing with house money. You're a 21.5-point underdog, and you bring Alabama to the brink of losing this game. I am sorry. If you want to call this a losing effort by South Carolina, yeah, I get it. You're frustrated because of Lenora Sellers missed a wide open 2-point conversion, the penalties. But this defensive front, this defense in general is just so damn good. Give Clayton White his flowers. Give everyone who is on that recruiting trail their flowers and their due because of just the way that they have played. From Kyle Kennard coming on in to Stewart being just a difference maker against any young offensive tackle or against any veteran tackle. Tonka Hemingway, the front seven, pressuring Jalen Milroe into making multiple mistakes. And then the secondary, Jalen Kilgore, to stay in bounds, to put himself in a great position so that way you at least walk away with 3 points. That is a defense that is going to give you its best punch every single week. And my God, we have got to start giving a lot more credit to what we have seen from this defensive side, because they are playing a brand of football that is sustainable. And at the same time, if you are a South Carolina fan, you are allowed to be frustrated because of you are wasting such a talented defense with an offense that
you basically lose all of them outside of Dylan Stewart after this.
And you don't know what's going to show up next year. And you don't know what's going to show up on a Saturday on offense. And that is the problem that I have. And that is the one caveat where if I am a South Carolina fan, I stand with you today and I get your pain, because if you are wasting a unit, this is not a top 5 defensive unit in the SEC for my money. This is a top 10 defensive unit in college football when they are on their P's and Q's, because they force turnovers. They know how to blitz. They have incredible depth. They know how to play a physical brand of football, and they are always unrelentlessly themselves. And when they play their brand, you are not beating them.
Yeah, defensively, yeah, South Carolina gives the Gamecocks a chance. That defense gives them a chance every week. They give them an opportunity. And I'll be honest with you, you hit a bunch of the nail on the defense as well. Kept them in it. They provide what they ended up with 4 or 5 sacks just off the top of my head. They produced in big-time SEC road games. Again, got stoned a little bit against LSU, but they arguably have the best tackle duo in the league. You're going to see that when your guys being a true freshman. No, defense is fine. Again, like you said, it kind of sucks this year if you're a South Carolina fan. You're breaking in a red shirt.
You're pissed as hell right now.
Veteran defense that you're kind of like, God, we lose everyone next year. Like, except Dylan Stewart. Hopefully they keep him. But
he's not going anywhere. If NIL is a thing to where that becomes such a major difference maker, they will find the money to keep him around. That is the most important recruit that has come through that building since Jadeveon Clowney.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. Hell, one of the guys already hit me up. Oregon, keep an eye, guys. But from a standpoint, I see people getting on it. Again, yeah, he didn't play perfect today and wasn't always great, but I start to like Lenore Sellers a little more each week. Again, he had some critical turnovers, had some turnovers last week. But again, like, yeah, he made some plays that lost you the game, but at the same time, he kept you in the games as well. I'm not totally against him yet. I think he's going to develop into a pretty good quarterback. Again,
Sellers? Sellers?
Yeah, who'd I say?
Okay. I wasn't.
Yeah, Lenore Sellers.
I'm reading the comment section, so
I don't really understand. I don't understand the subbing in of Robbie Ashford. Like every time Robbie Ashford comes in, it's either a penalty or turnover right off the bat. It looks like there's no cohesion when he comes in. And then, but again, Lenore Sellers, I think he's going to develop. Again, I don't really like Dow Loggins with him, but I do like him down the road. I think he'll be a good player. Still waiting on some guys to step up on the outside. Yeah, Bennett makes some big plays, but a lot of his big plays, if you go back to watch him, like Kentucky and today. Again, a touchdown's a touchdown. He's wide open.
I hate to cut you off, but there was a moment where one of the big time runs by Rocket Sanders was set up because of Mazeo Bennett had a great block. Like there are little things that we're missing that, yes, he is a big time threat, but there are also those minor little details to where you're seeing a freshman live up to expectations as the new future number 1 receiver.
But I think for them to reach their vertical threat ceiling, I think you'd say for this year, and I think it's low. They need Nick Harbor to step up like he did at the very end. But
oh my God,
at the very end, he looked a little lost on the interception. I don't think he knew where the ball even was. I don't think he knew it was thrown.
I don't think. I think that he had no idea where it was.
But the play he did make when the foot was in, it was an obvious touchdown. Hell of a play. That's the kind of guy they want. But to your point, Cole, you brought up Bennett blocking on the edge. Remember, Nick Harbor had the big missed block on Devontae Smith on a screen earlier where he just was like, he ran right by him. That's where you're going to get the inconsistencies. Like you said, people will watch the highlights of the catch, but forget about that. You just got to get that track and field mindset out. Again, a genetic freak. But no, I mean, South Carolina across the board, dude, they're gritty. Their defense is going to allow them. Now, are they going to win the rest of their games? Probably not. But the defense is going to give them a shot to have an opportunity to win every game. It's just, can the offense stop kicking themselves in the foot? Stop kicking themselves in the ass, and then can they just generate some more explosive plays and limit the turnovers? That's what kills you.
I love the way that Rocket Sanders played when they finally gave him the football. He was solid today. Couple big time runs. The touchdown at the start of the third quarter.
Oh, not interrupting you, asking you a question here because you brought it up. Right, dude. I feel like the 2 best running backs in the league from getting yards after contact are, when he's healthy, Rocket Sanders and I think Jaquindon Jackson.
100%. I think that if you were to tell me right now who are the top 3 running backs at full capacity in the SEC, it would be hard not to include Dylan Sampson, but Jaquindon Jackson and Rocket Sanders are the top 2. The fact that you did see a couple of big-time plays from wide receivers, Nick Harbor at the back of the end zone, big-time catch from Mazeo Bennett. When you saw Jacobs get a couple of big-time catches, the 12-yard first down, Joshua Simon pick up a couple of first downs. There's so much to like about the direction of this team. But the problem is that this is, again, it's year 4 underneath Shane Beamer. He overexceeded expectations in year 1. He drastically overexceeded expectations in year 2 with the back-to-back upsets over Tennessee and Clemson to close out the year. Regression set in last year. Offensive line was a problem last year. Play calling was a problem last year. And you had the quarterback. Dave, I'm going to be completely real with you for a minute. When I think of South Carolina having a guy like Spencer Rattler this year, they feel like a 10-win team. And because of you are indoctrinating Lenore Sellers, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is going to make young, fundamentally problematic mistakes because that's just what young quarterbacks do. I'm not ready to give up on him, but this is a year where right now, even though you have questions when it comes to where the play calling is, where the wide receivers are, there's still so much to like about this defense that if you had a quarterback that was a veteran, a guy that has been in these type of situations, not only do you probably feel confident that you're walking away with the win, you're probably feeling confident that you're a dark horse to make the college football playoff. Because the way that I saw South Carolina's defense play today, the way that I saw several players step up, whether it be a Rocket Sanders, whether it be a Nick Harbor, whether it be a Mazio Bennett, a veteran quarterback in that situation doesn't make those fundamental mistakes to where 4 turnovers are the story. And instead, we're talking about this as an upset team every single week.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they are. I put them in Arkansas kind of in that same category where it's like, yeah, if you aren't focused to come in and play it again, I'm not saying Alabama wasn't focused. They had every reason in the world to come there and be focused. And that's what I was kind of telling people going into the week. Like, I think I picked the final was 33-17. So, again, I didn't have Bama covering, but I thought this game was going to be a little closer than people – because I always hate people just being like, oh, Bama's going to come in. I mean, again – no offense, South Carolina fans, just my opinion here. I think Shane Beamer comes off a little whiny at times, but at a half, he was right. Like, everybody just thought Bama was going to come in here and kick our tail and, like, we weren't going to be ready. Dude, after about the first quarter, maybe even earlier, emotion wears off and it comes down to execution. I know that sounds cliche, but it is. Like, pregame warm-ups, first couple series, yeah, emotion. You're playing off emotion. That wears off, and Alabama has real issues, and South Carolina has a real advantage against most teams when they come into it. They got a defensive line, a front seven that's pretty good. That travels week to week. It's going to give you an opportunity to win every Saturday. Again, like we talked about, the key will be Lenore Sellers. And again, if I'm just a South Carolina fan, we ended up going 5-7, 6-6, whatever it may be, you ended up going. I still like the direction of Lenore Sellers going forward. I think he reminds me of kind of a younger Anthony Richardson, but I think he could probably be a little bit more of an accurate passer. Again,
I think he could be a much better passer.
Agree. I think he could too. Again, I'll be honest with you, it's too early to say, but I just don't really like the marriage of him and Dow Loggins. That's my thing. If you get him a new OC, and again, I'm not calling for Loggins' job here, South Carolina fans, but it looks like y'all don't like him either. But
they hate him.
Like, he'll be successful in college at some point, Lenore Sellers. And he's already playing pretty solid. He didn't play well enough to win today, but he did make plays at times to keep them in the game.
There were so many moments to where you can blame just bad coverage at times with the Jeremy Bernard touchdown, with the way that they were able to allow a guy like Jalen Milroe to break open into the field for a first down gain. There's enough to say, yes, this is a defense that has its faults, but it's good enough to keep you in games. Again, I think it's a top 10 unit in college football. I think it's a top 2 unit in the SEC. That's how well they've played. That's how well they've looked, and especially.
I don't want to forget this question. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think we're reacting. I'm asking you a question. You piggybacked on me. Where would you? Short question, yes or no? Is Alabama a top half defense in the SEC? Are they the top?
No, not even close. No, not even remotely close. They're bottom 5 right now the way they're playing. The fact that Damani Jackson, who was playing hurt with a hip flexor, that needed to come on in, step up, and get that big-time interception simply to save the game. Because if you don't trust the rest of Alabama's secondary, shows that you are a bottom-half defense in the SEC right now. You are. You 100% are. And again, when you look currently at a team like South Carolina, there is so much to like about their defense. And there is a lot to like about where they are recruiting right now. Because if I continue to check their recruiting boards, I have come to love South Carolina. I love their fan base. I really do. I love everything about Williams-Brice Stadium. I want South Carolina to be a team that we're talking about with a ranked number next to their name every single week because of the way that their fans show out and the way they deserve to be treated, the way that they have just treated the team. They're doing enough good, but there are still so many faults in this organization to where you have got to realize either Dow Loggins is not going to be sticking around long, Shane Beamer is not going to be sticking around long, or you're going to continuously find yourself at 7-5, 8-4, and that is your ceiling every single year. And that shouldn't be the ceiling for South Carolina. It shouldn't, and it won't. But today is a day where if you're an Alabama fan, you are sitting and wondering what else could go wrong. Because, Dave, I'm going to be completely real. The performance that you saw today, that is a 10-point loss to LSU. That is a 15 to 20-point loss to Tennessee if their defense plays up to a certain brand. And that is a game that you will probably go down to the wire with against Missouri, who found a way to run it back and make things extremely close. Again, who found a way to come back and just beat the brakes off of Massachusetts, but they're still who we think that they are. They're still a team that has flaw after flaw after flaw, and so does Alabama. So I give a lot of credit to South Carolina, their gut, their grit, their determination. Dave, you heard me talk about this. I have said on multiple occasions, the wild card team of the SEC, the wild card team of college football this year is going to be South Carolina. You tell me that they do something, I will believe that it happened. I will. But
I would throw Arkansas in the same boat.
But the fact of the matter is that wild card doesn't always turn into the way that we saw last season, Mizzou come out of nowhere and get to 11 wins. That's not wild card. Wild card is we're talking about this team in a positive or a negative light, and I believe either outcome could come true. So give a lot of credit to South Carolina for being a team that marched on into Bryant-Denny Stadium, marched on into an atmosphere to where you figured Alabama was going to wake up and choose violence and kind of turn them into their whipping boy, and they gave them a fight to remember. But there are so many more questions that you have with Alabama at this point that now I'm sitting here and you and I are going to do a preview tonight. I mean, we're going to do a post-game reaction to potentially Vanderbilt and Kentucky, depending on what that game looks like. Now I'm wondering, okay, was Kentucky, is Vanderbilt really that good? Or is Alabama's defense just so unsolvable, we have no idea where to go?
Yeah, Alabama's just not good across the board fundamentally on defense. Sometimes it's not showing up on giving up points, but it's field position. Like you're killing yourselves in your offense on field position. I think people miss that. Yeah, I don't know why anybody was loading up on 22 this week. I didn't touch it. I didn't take it either way. But
it was the dumbest line of all time.
But Alabama, dude, you're looking at it. They're going to be in a dogfight, I think, in every game outside of Mercer. I think they are at Tennessee, Missouri at home, at LSU, Mercer, at Oklahoma, and Auburn. They all could be dogfights. They could all be down to the fourth quarter. I think because this defense can be had at times, and it could kill them in field position. And we've seen Jalen Milroe sometimes can make mistakes. But no, I think we're just to the time now. Depth between the transfer portal, having to play young guys, new staff, teams undisciplined. It's just the perfect storm for them to be very inconsistent across the board, week to week, and even within game to game, if I'm just being completely honest with you here.
Dave, before we get on out of here, what is more likely at this point? South Carolina finding a way to get to 7-5, be a bowl eligible team, get a marquee win, whether it be against Mizzou, whether it be against Oklahoma, whether it be against Texas A&M, or Alabama missing the playoff. And I think that both things can be possible. But what feels more likely at this point?
Well, I'm looking at Carolina's schedule right now. So at Oklahoma next week.
That to me could easily be.
South Carolina is very much like Alabama. I think Alabama across the board is a better team if they played a series. Alabama, but it's a lot of the SEC this year, dude. The middle of the league to the back of the league is better than it's been, and I think that top of the league is not as good as it's been. So it makes it for more parity in that little sandwich in the league. Yeah. But at Oklahoma. Bye week, Texas A&M at home, at Vanderbilt, Missouri at home. You're due to win that game at some point. Wofford, and then at Clemson. They got a bunch of toss-up games. There's no guaranteed loss, but there's also I see only one guaranteed win, like I do against Wofford, like I do with Alabama against Mercer. I
think right now I feel more confident saying that South Carolina will be a bowl eligible team at 7-5 than Alabama being in the playoff. The performance.
Sorry, I didn't answer your direct question. Yeah, I would agree with that. I could see because South Carolina's at 3 wins right now.
Yeah, they're 3 wins right now.
Give them 4, Wofford. So you really need 2 out of the.
And they very well would be 6-1 with that schedule if a penalty doesn't go against them at LSU. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of game to be played where you blew a 17-point lead, but still that penalty on Nicky Manwari, I'm going to always defend it. South Carolina fans have a reason to be upset on that pick 6. And the way that your offense played today was not good enough for the way that your defense has been all year. You're a couple of plays away from being 6-1 with your schedule and still the best ahead of you. I don't know about Alabama. I don't. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, the Alabama team right now, no, they won't make the playoffs.
Now, don't get me wrong. You got to remember, we didn't have Kobe Prince out here today. We didn't have Kendrick Law out there today. So they were down some wide receivers. But this is Alabama. This is title time. This is a team that 2 weeks ago was up by 4 scores against one of the best in-game managers and improvisers in Kirby Smart, and he had no answers in the first half, and they don't look anywhere near that same roster. If you were to ask me today, Alabama in the playoff or South Carolina at 8-4, I would lean South Carolina at 8-4. I feel much more confident in that.
7-5, I'd take Carolina. You're right. 8-4 is where you'd start really getting to be like, man, either one of these may happen or both of them may happen.
I feel much more confident in saying if their defense and their offense doesn't create those turnovers, they're 8-4 more than
next
Alabama
week for South Carolina is massive. I almost feel like you have to win that game to get to
I think they will. I'm just going to lock it in.
I'd think right now, again, and we're watching Oklahoma as we speak. They're playing right now. Yeah, I mean, I would lean. It's a good spot for South Carolina. I know you're again, the crazy stat. We'll see if Ole Miss can beat it. We'll see if Ole Miss can beat it tonight. Since 2019, only 2 teams have ever won true back-to-back road games. Ole Miss puts that to the test tonight. Those 2 teams, 2019 LSU National Championship, 2021 Georgia. And you could have South Carolina will get it. Well, South Carolina's streaks already. They lost today, so they can't go be that 3rd team. Ole Miss got a chance tonight, but again, back-to-back road trips to the SEC tough. But you're right, Cole. I like where it is for South Carolina coming off the Texas game. And again, I mean, how many points do you think Oklahoma's going to score against South Carolina? I don't think a lot.
We could see a 9-6 game. Basically what we saw in 2011.
No, right now, Cole, I'd say I trust South Carolina's offense.
I could see a 14-10 game. I could see a 14-0 game, 10-0 game. Any one of those.
Yeah. Over-under in that will be about, what, 38?
What?
I said over-under in that game will be about
I'm thinking about 40 at the most. 40.5.
38-40.
That's where I'm at. Sellers, again, I'm not ready to give up on him. I'm not ready to give up on Shane Beamer. I'm not ready to give up on anything other than maybe Dow Loggins. Just if you're going to ride with Sellers next year. For me, when I look at this team, this version of South Carolina, it just is a shame that their defense is going to be wasted. But when I look at this, I feel more about where South Carolina is as a program than I have any idea where Alabama is. I don't know. And Alabama, the problem is that now you showed your weaknesses a 2nd week in a row, and you got to go travel to Rocky Top to take on a Tennessee team that has the confidence, that more importantly has the defense, that is going to put you in multiple situations to where you walk away don't feeling confident at all. There is no way I feel confident at all about this.
I think everybody will be picking. Again, we hadn't seen Tennessee play today. They play Florida this afternoon at home, or this evening at home. But I'm with you. I think Tennessee will be favored by 3 or 4 heading into this.
Well, they should. The way that Alabama looked today
should definitely be the favorite.
The way Alabama looked today, absolutely. You have a week to get right. You have a week to get back to the Bama that we saw in the first half against Georgia. And if that's the team that we see, congratulations, you're in the college football playoff. If the team that we saw today play again against LSU, against Mizzou, against Tennessee, we are legit talking about a program that very well could go 8-4. But for Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure you hit the comment section down below with your overall thoughts on this game. How did South Carolina show you anything that you believe can be sustainable moving forward? What needs to be corrected down in Tuscaloosa if the Crimson Tide are going to get back to the version of college football that we knew for a decade plus? Make sure that also you hit the subscribe button. That way you're not missing any live reactions, any post-game shows, any Sunday Funday content, Day Talk Ball, the Monday Morning Power Hour. Make sure that you're following us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that also you follow Dave on Twitter at Mock10 Sports, me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. We will be back after the Red River Shootout. Alabama survives. But honestly, this felt like more so a game to where if you're a South Carolina fan, there's enough to like. And if you're an Alabama fan, I don't even know where to start. Peace.